Hey everyone, so I wanted to address some of the concepts of Christianity that are more widespread, perhaps, among all of the different denominations, since most people realize that there are lots of different brands of Christianity, if you will. I wanted to briefly discuss the concept of original sin, the Trinity, the Immaculate Conception, the idea that Jesus rose from the dead, and the concept of let he who is without sin cast the first stone, which is found in the Gospel of St. John. Let's look at these. The concept of Immaculate Conception is kind of misinterpreted. A lot of people think that it's talking about the virgin birth of Jesus, when in fact it's a Catholic dogma, if you will, referring to Mary and her life and the fact that she supposedly was conceived without the concept of original sin. Original sin didn't apply to her. She was innocent completely. That isn't anywhere in the Bible, and Catholics tend to believe that. That's a Catholic belief. There's no biblical foundation for that whatsoever. The concept of original sin is the same way, and that's more than just a Catholic belief. That's the foundation of most, if not all, brands of Christianity. Everyone believes in the concept of original sin. If they didn't, why would you need Jesus to come and sacrifice himself to himself to make sure that you get forgiven? Yeah, find original sin in the Bible for me. If you can, I would love to hear about it. Also, the Trinity, there's one passage in the Bible which is 1 John 5, verse 7 through 8, that could be interpreted to be making references to the Trinity, but this didn't appear in the Bible until 1522, and it was taken out because it was attributed to a careless copyist and then put back in to reinforce the concept of the Trinity. So, the most relevant verse in the Bible referring to the Trinity, we know its history, and we know that it wasn't originally there, and it was added later and taken out and then re-added so that people could continue to believe in the Trinity. The story in St. John about the mob bringing the adulteress to Jesus and saying they wanted to stone her to death or whatever, and him telling them, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Most biblical scholars agree that this was not originally in that gospel. They don't know where that came from. The concept of Jesus rising from the dead is the most interesting one, because honestly it's really the whole basis for Christianity. It's like, okay, he was crucified, he died for your sins, and then he rose from the dead. I mean, if he had just been crucified and died and that was it, nobody would have given a shit. Mark, which is where this is found, if you look at Mark, chapter 16, which is the last chapter, it originally ended when the women go to the tomb, they find a man dressed in a white robe, he says that Jesus has risen, and they leave and they don't say anything to anyone because they're afraid. And that's where it ended. That was it. Even in my Bible it says, the earliest manuscripts and some other ancient witnesses do not have Mark 16, 9 through 20. And then you go through 9 through 20, and that's when Jesus rose. That's where, it says he rose from the dead, which isn't in the earliest manuscripts of the Bible. It's not there. And also, it has the words of Jesus in part of this, in 15. So Mark chapter 16, verse 15, it has the words of Jesus. This wasn't in the earliest manuscripts. So if it wasn't in the earliest manuscripts, where did the words of Jesus come from later? Who would have added them in? The ancient witnesses and texts didn't have them. So it has these words of Jesus, which, where did they come from? And if they're adding these in later, how can you be sure about any of the words of Jesus, or any of the Bible for that matter? A lot of Christians, they understand that the Bible has been translated into different languages, and that there are sometimes, difficulties with the translation, but I don't think they realize that things have been added and taken away, and entire books of the Bible, or entire ancient texts that should have been maybe part of the Bible, were outlawed by the church because they taught things like, look under a rock and you'll find me, you don't need a church, things like that. Of course, they're gonna throw those out. The more peaceful teachings about loving your neighbor, like, how the hell are you gonna love your neighbor if you actually read the Bible? I'm outraged. I can't believe that that people can believe these things without really looking at them. Where did these words of Jesus come from? I want to know. If you can give me an explanation, that'd be great. And if you can't give me an explanation, but you still somehow believe in this, then find an explanation for yourself. That's all I ask. It doesn't make sense.